room is small and windowless. A volunteer sits before a long metal box studded with 30 switches, each one labeled with a rising number of volts. Down the row, the warnings darken from slight shock to intense, to danger, and finally to a stark red XXX. He does not want to be here. Yet his hand hovers over the next lever, waiting for permission to press it. Through the thin wall, a voice has been screaming. It begged for mercy, it protested a heart condition, it demanded to be let out of the chair. Now, past 300 volts, the screaming has stopped. Only a terrible silence answers each new shock delivered. Sweating and pale, the volunteer turns and asks whether someone should go check on the stranger next door. No one moves to help. Behind him, a calm figure in a gray laboratory coat does not stir. The experiment requires that you continue, he says. There is no threat in the voice, no weapon in the hand, only the quiet authority of a clipboard and a title. And so the volunteer turns back to the machine. He flips the switch. This is Yale University, 1961, and it is one of the most disturbing things psychology has ever recorded. Months earlier, a courtroom in Jerusalem had put Adolf Eichmann on trial for organizing the transport of millions to the death camps. He did not look like a monster. He looked like a bureaucrat, and his defense was chillingly simple: he was only following orders. Around the world, people asked how an entire nation could obey its way into atrocity. A young Yale psychologist named Stanley Milgram decided to stop wondering and start measuring it. His question was blunt. If an ordinary citizen is commanded by a legitimate authority to hurt a stranger, how far will they go before they refuse? Milgram was certain he knew the answer. So were the experts he polled. Nearly everyone believed that only a tiny, broken fraction of humanity would follow such orders to the end. Hold that prediction in your mind, because by the time this is over, it will have completely collapsed. So he placed an advertisement in a New Haven newspaper, offering $4.50 for an hour in a study of memory and learning. The volunteers who answered were not students or soldiers. They were teachers, salesmen, engineers, postal clerks, the ordinary fabric of a working city. Each arrived believing he had come to help science understand how people learn. None of them suspected that he himself was the true experiment. On arrival, each volunteer met another participant, a mild, pleasant accountant in his 40s. It was rigged from the very start. The accountant was a trained actor, and the drawing of lots that assigned roles was fixed so the real subject always became the teacher. The stranger, now the learner, was strapped into a chair in the next room with an electrode taped to his arm. The teacher was told the shocks would be painful, but cause no permanent tissue damage. Then came the machine itself. A long console of 30 switches ran from 15 volts up to 450, climbing in careful 15-volt steps. The labels beneath told a story of their own, from slight shock through intense, to danger, severe shock, ending in 3 ominous letters, XXX. To prove the device was real, the teacher was given a genuine 45-volt jolt himself. From that moment on, he had no reason to doubt any of the rest. The rules were simple. The teacher read pairs of words, then tested the learner's memory of them. Every wrong answer earned a shock, and with each new mistake the voltage climbed one step higher. At first it all felt trivial, almost boring. 15 volts, 30, 45. But the learner made mistakes on purpose, again and again and again, and the needle of consequence kept creeping upward, one deliberate error at a time, toward the red end of the board. At 75 volts, the learner grunted in pain. At 120, he shouted that the shocks were becoming unbearable. At 150, he cried out to be released, invoking the heart condition he had mentioned on the way in. This was the hinge of the entire experiment. Researchers who later combed the data found that if a person was ever going to disobey, this was usually where they found the courage. Most, however, did not. Whenever a teacher hesitated, the man in the gray coat answered with one of 4 calm, scripted lines. Please continue. The experiment requires that you continue. It is absolutely essential that you continue. And finally, you have no other choice, you must go on. He never raised his voice. He never made a threat. The pressure was pure, polite, unhurried authority, and it proved heavier and more relentless than a stranger's screams through the wall. The volunteers were not sadists relishing the moment. They sweated, trembled, dug their nails into their palms, and stuttered their protests. Some laughed in awful, uncontrollable, nervous bursts. Many begged the experimenter to check on the learner, insisted it was wrong, swore they could not possibly continue. And then, when told the experiment required it, a staggering number turned back to the board and pressed the next switch anyway. Their conscience screamed. Their hands obeyed. Before the results came in, Milgram had asked a panel of psychiatrists at a leading medical school to predict what would happen. Their verdict was reassuring. They estimated that only about 1 person in 1,000, some rare and pathological outlier, would ever push the dial all the way to 450 volts. Ordinary Americans, they confidently agreed, would refuse long before the danger zone. They were about to be proven catastrophically wrong. In the very first version of the experiment, 26 of the 40 volunteers obeyed to the absolute end. Every single switch. Every warning ignored, all the way to the final XXX, 450 volts delivered to a silent, unresponsive stranger. 65%. Not a broken sliver of humanity, but nearly 2 out of every 3 ordinary people, following an order they visibly hated to a conclusion they genuinely believed might be lethal. Not one of them was forced. There was no gun, no chains, no punishment waiting for refusal. At any moment they could have stood, walked to the door, left, and kept their $4.50. The only thing holding them in that chair was a soft voice and a gray coat calmly insisting the experiment must go on. That, it turned out, was almost always enough to keep the switches falling. Milgram ran the study again and again, more than 20 variations in all, hunting for what switched obedience on and off. When he moved the experiment out of prestigious Yale and into a shabby downtown office, compliance dropped, but only slightly. When the authority issued orders by telephone rather than in person, defiance rose sharply. Distance from the man in the coat, it seemed, quietly gave people back the use of their own conscience. The closer the victim, the more people resisted. When teachers were made to press the learner's own hand down onto a metal shock plate, obedience fell, yet a full third still complied. And when 2 other actors playing teachers rebelled and walked out of the room first, the real subject almost always found the strength to quit as well. We are, it seems, exquisitely sensitive to the people standing around us, for better and for much worse. Milgram's explanation was deeply unsettling. Under legitimate authority, he argued, people slip into what he called an agentic state. They stop seeing themselves as the author of their own actions and begin to feel like a mere instrument carrying out someone else's will. The moral weight does not vanish into thin air. It simply transfers up the chain, to the man in the coat, who becomes responsible in their minds, while their own hands are left conveniently clean. The findings detonated across psychology, but so did the ethics. Milgram had deceived his subjects and marched them to the edge of a moral abyss with no warning at all. The outcry helped give birth to the modern rules that now govern every experiment on human beings. Yet here is the twist that still unsettles us most. When Milgram surveyed his volunteers afterward, the overwhelming majority said they were glad to have taken part. They did not resent the mirror he had held up to them. Milgram had set out to explain the horror of distant tyranny, the guards, and the camps and the crowded trains. What he found instead was something far closer to home. The capacity for obedience that fuels atrocity was not a foreign defect locked away inside monsters. It lived quietly in salesmen and schoolteachers from New Haven, in people who loved their children, paid their taxes, tended their gardens, and would have unhesitatingly called themselves good. That is the true shock the machine delivered, and it was never wired to the chair. It ran through everyone who flipped the switch, and it runs through everyone who reads this and quietly assumes they never would. The uniform does not have to be a soldier's. Sometimes it is only a gray coat and a calm, patient voice saying the experiment requires that you continue. And most of us, it turns out, do.